Our school community is pausing this morning to mark remembrance. We join people around the world in paying our respects to all those who have given their lives in the many conflicts that have happened since the First World War started in 1914. At 11 a.m, the Assembly will stand and maintain 2 minutes silence. At the same time, I will accompany representatives from all key stages in the school, and we will lay wreaths of poppies at our war memorial by the school gates. The last post will be played at our war memorial. At the end of the 2-minute silence, the head boy and girl and I will proceed to our Book of Remembrance, which is located in the entrance foyer, and the head boy and girl will turn a page of the book, as is customary each year. As is usual, one of the ways in which we remember the fallen is through the wearing of poppies. This is because in the torn-up battlefields of France and Belgium, where nearly all life had been extinguished, poppies grew, and the money is used to help ex-servicemen and women who suffered in war. We will now hear a poem entitled Flanders Fields, the area of Belgium where so much fighting took place, written by John McCrae and read by our head girl and head boy, Bianca Niachega and Lachlan Bruce.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row and row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks, still bravely singing, fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields.
Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold up high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Last year I shared with you the story of 2 members of the Topping family from Lisburn, one of the 35,000 soldiers remembered on the wall of Tyne Cot, whose body was never found or identified, is Rifleman Sam Topping from the Royal Irish Rifles. He died on the 16th of August 1917, aged 45. He was the husband of Annie Topping of Millbrook Road, Lisburn, County Antrim in Northern Ireland. He was my wife's great-grandfather. You may recall that the second, also called Sam Topping, is commemorated on the Lisburn War Memorial, who died in the Second World War in northern France 2 months on after D-Day on the 17th of August 1944. He had enlisted in the Royal Irish Ulster Rifles and taken part in the Normandy invasions. Rifleman Topping was killed in action on the 16th of August 1944, aged 39, after 3 years' service. His home was also in Millbrook Road, Lisburn, County Antrim. He was married with 3 children. This Sam Topping has a grave in a cemetery in Normandy. This Sam Topping was my wife's grandfather, the son of Samuel Topping, who fell at Ypres in 1917. 2 Samuel Toppings killed in France, one in the First World War, one in the Second World War. So, for my wife and her family, a very personal connection and remembrance each November, 2 family members amongst the fallen, one of whom has a grave that can be visited in northern France, one whose name is engraved on a wall in Belgium, both of whom remembered on the Lisburn War Memorial. This year I want to share the story of a 3rd Sam Topping, the next in line, the son and grandson of the 2 Sam Toppings who fell in the First and Second World Wars. Named after his father and grandfather, neither of whom he knew, his grandfather died long before he was born, and he had no memory of his father, as Sam was born during the Second World War, a conflict his father would not return from. But unlike his father and grandfather, Sam didn't have to sign up to fight. He lived in more peaceful times. Nonetheless, he grew up with gaps in his life, his missing father and grandfather. His mother never remarried. But he knew that they had died in the 2 world wars, fighting overseas, and he knew that his father had died fighting Nazism. At least, that's what they thought until there was a knock on the door in the 1980s. They answered the door, and it was the pastor who had served with his unit. And he'd come to tell the family the truth about how Sam Topping had died in the Second World War. That he hadn't actually died in combat fighting the Nazis, but he had accidentally been shot by another soldier in his unit as they were cleaning their rifles at the end of the day, not in combat, but away from the front lines. And the decision had been made during the Second World War not to inform the family of the truth, but to tell them that he had died heroically fighting the Nazis. This was in part to ease the blow, as they thought at the time, and also to help the colleague who had accidentally shot him come to terms with what he had done. And he had asked the pastor to keep that secret, but to tell the family the truth when he had died. And in the 1980s, the colleague who had accidentally killed Sam Toppin passed, and the pastor came to knock on the door and tell the family the truth. 40 years on, echoes and ripples from battlefields across time. My wife tells me that her Uncle Sam was never the same after this. His whole understanding of his life, his story, had been changed. Though he still believed his father was heroic, he had gone into northern France on D-Day after all, the circumstances of his death were different from what he had lived and believed for 40 years, and he felt that in some way he had been living a lie. As a man, Sam was able to visit his father's grave in northern France, and here he is on the right, wearing his father's medals, with his sister on the left, accompanied by the pastor. Our next reading is a poem by Wilfred Owen called Anthem for Doomed Youth, and as we remember and mark those lives lost on the battlefield and in conflict, however they fell, I want us also to remember the lives impacted by those losses, immediately and in many cases for decades thereafter. Anthem for Doomed Youth will be read by Robert Cranston and Jakub Bielensky.
What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns, only the stuttering rifles' rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers nor bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all, not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds.
In the Norton Knatchbull Book of Remembrance referred to earlier, there are 101 Norton Knatchbull lives remembered. 37 that died in the First World War, 62 that died in World War II, 1 that died in the Falklands War, and 1 that died in Iraq. The page we will be turning to today details 7 ex-students who died in the Second World War. The dates underneath each name in the book indicate the years where the students studied at Norton Knatchbull. The dates in red underneath show when they were killed. You will see from some of them just how soon after they left the school that they gave their lives. Others had left the school some years earlier, so had embarked on careers and probably left families behind. You will also see from the details the different areas of conflict in the Northwest Atlantic, France, Libya, Iraq and Germany, and others in the UK, one in hospital after serving in Iceland, and most local to us, Anthony John Stone, who was killed during a raid in Ashford in March 1943. Remembrance Day is our chance to pay our respects to the people who have been killed in warfare whenever and wherever that was, whatever government was in charge. It is also a day when we take time to think about people whose lives have been crippled by war, whether physically or emotionally. And perhaps most important of all, this is a time when we can set aside to consider the devastating impact that intolerance, bigotry, arrogance and violence can have on us as individuals, as communities and as countries. There are various conflict situations currently happening around the world. The war continues in the Ukraine and now also in the Middle East. These are not faraway people in faraway lands, but people that live on the same continent as ours. Whether or not our country is directly involved, every conflict impacts on us. In an increasingly interconnected world, our shared humanity suffers with every bullet and shell fired. As we remember those who fell in the past, we should also remember to think of those people being directly affected as we speak. As we head towards the close of this assembly, we'll hear the 4th verse of another very famous First World War poem, For the Fallen, by Lawrence Binyon. This will be read for us by Kartik Sharma. At the end of the reading, I will, along with our student council members, head out to the War Memorial with our wreaths. You will be invited to stand to observe 2-minute silence.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. As going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.